Today is going to be a talk about faith. And I want you to begin just thinking about what your own definition of faith is. You've noticed my title is Faith. Is it a noun or a verb? In Unity, we talk often about what we call our 12 spiritual powers. And each of those 12 spiritual powers are represented in lots of different areas of our life. We talk about them in certain months, the 12 months. We talk about them as they are represented by the disciples of Christ, the 12 disciples. We talk about them and base them on color. We talk about them and find out where they are located within our physical being. And faith is the spiritual power that we have assigned to the month of January. Thank goodness. Because every time we start a new year, isn't that exactly what we need? Faith that we will make it through this next year. And the disciple that is represented in our understanding of faith is the disciple of Peter. His story is important because he wasn't always Peter. He was a very crude fisherman named Simon. And over the course of his understanding and developing and growth, he transformed. That's what that story is all about. He went from being Simon to Simon Peter to finally just having the nickname Peter. He transformed or even transcended into something else through this faculty that he knew as faith. In our physical body, faith is represented in the very center of our brain, which is located between our eye and our ear, the pineal gland. And it's important that we see it there in our third eye because it is exactly what our understanding of this scripture that is on the front of your bulletin today is all about. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." Not by physical sight. Not by physical hearing or tasting or touching, but by this knowing, this trusting, believing, faithing. I just verbed the word, didn't I? So, faith is the faculty that Jesus most frequently spoke of. He used the word often, and he used all the words. But when he used the word, he would say, "have faith," or "I have faith," which is different than talking about faith as something that is static, outside of us. Rather, it is within us, within us. And so, as we look at faith today, I want to remind you what the writer of the Hebrews said about faith. It is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And understood in that light, faith is that quality in us that enables us to look beyond the appearance of things, beyond the appearance of lack or limitation, beyond the appearance of worry or regret, beyond the appearance of whatever it is in your personal life that has become this static obstacle on your path. Life is a big, hairy, scary thing sometimes. So I'm going to invite you today to just look at one part of your life. It might be your relationship. It might be your finances. It might be your career. It might be your health. Look at one thing in your life that you're kind of struggling with. And then I just want you to find within you your own questioning about where your faith lies about that thing. Do you believe or do you have faith that you can overcome that thing? Do you have faith that that thing really has no power or dominion over you except in mind? Do you believe that that thing that you are struggling with, that you are carrying forth in your everyday experience, is just a thing? You know, thoughts are things. Ever heard that? Thoughts are prayers. I think we just sang about that. And so that thing that you have thought of and brought forth into existence, because all a belief is a thought you have over and over and over, just started like a raindrop in mind as a thought. You practiced it so much that you began to believe that it were true. And now that it is true in your life experience, you're focused on it. Faith is our ability to see beyond that. Faith is the faculty within us to look past it and experience whatever it is that is beyond that. And in developing the quality of faith, we have to start, as Peter did, by being receptive to truth. Because that thing that is bothering you, that thing that is the obstacle, that thing that is the crisis, may or may not be true. When I talk about truth, I'm always talking about it on this stage with a capital T. Truth idea. And so our Unity co-founder, Charles Fillmore, in his book, Revealing Word, dedicated 4 pages to what he believed faith was. He says, faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. It is spiritual assurance, the power to do the seemingly impossible. It is a magnetic power that draws unto us our heart's desire from the invisible spiritual substance. And faith is a deep inner knowing that that which is sought is already ours for the taking. I love that. You cannot underline or score or highlight any more about that than I already have in my book. He also says, faith is more than mere belief. It is the very substance of that which is believed. Faith working in spiritual substance accomplishes all things. This is the faith that cooperates with creative law. There are lots of creative laws happening right here, right now. You cannot see them with your physical eyes. You can't necessarily hear them with your physical ears or taste them with your taste buds or reach out and touch them. But they are working right here, right now in cooperative ways that we may not ever understand. The law of attraction is happening right here, right now. Whatever you're thinking about, you are drawing unto you that thing. The law of gravity, I notice, is still working. Aren't you glad? I have enough bad hair days without it. And so these laws that are being applied all over the planet, wherever we are, those laws are. And so our faith really comes into alignment with whether or not we believe in the existence of that law. I want you to take that in for just a moment. Do you believe that all things are possible? Do you believe it at the core and the cradle of your soul that all things are possible? Yes. So one of my friends had a baby not long ago. That baby, Alex, is learning to walk. I was at her house this last week, and Alex is at that stage where he's pulling himself up on every static object and trying to take his first steps, which means hide everything, lock all the doors and cabinets. And Alex doesn't have yet the wherewithal to know that he can walk, because he would take a couple of steps and fall. He would take a couple of steps and fall. Luckily, he didn't have far to fall. And I noticed while I sat there with my friend watching Alex, this is not her first child, so she wasn't doing this that you do with your first child. She just, there he goes again. And so as I was sitting there watching him up and down, I noticed that my response was not, Alex, you're such a little idiot. Why do you not know how to walk yet? The response within me was, I know that he will get this. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he wants this so bad that he keeps trying and trying and trying. And whatever obstacle was in his way, and trust me, all the toys were out of the toy box. Every obstacle in his existence was in his way. He looked past the appearance of those things. He wanted to go to the kitchen where he knew the Cheerios were. Most people who are offering what many of us in New Thought call a vibration is at any given time offering a vibration that is not what I might say is pure positive energy. Rather, it is a vibration that is both a negative and positive kind of vibration. Meaning, though you want something and you have the desire for that thing, you also, because of your humanness, you might call it ego, notice that that thing is absent. And so you practice not only the desire of wanting that, you are also at the very same time practicing the understanding, the noticing, the awareness that that is absent. Perhaps now you're thinking about your finances, right? Perhaps now you're thinking about relationship. And so it's not easy necessarily to have faith in a journey that you don't understand, but when you understand your system, your being, the higher being within you, then you can come into the understanding that that journey is possible. Start there. You know, I understand this journey from Tulsa to Springfield, Missouri pretty well by now. And I also understand me pretty well by now. And I understand that at one particular point on my journey from Tulsa to Springfield, Missouri, I'm going to get a little bored. It happens you could almost set your clock. You could put a mile marker at this place that I get bored on that trip. It is just this side of Joplin. There is a little motel that sits on this side of the road that Kathy Bates stayed at once, I'm sure. And at that point of my journey, I start fumbling with the radio. I start thinking, usually I start thinking, what am I going to preach about less than 9 hours from now? And I come to that place where I've mentioned this before. I'm no longer necessarily in the middle of where I'm supposed to be in that lane, but I'm on those little ripples on the side of the road where I'm, You've been there, right? So about that point of my journey, I notice that I am out of alignment with the lane that I'm supposed to be in. The same is happening with the journey of life, whether it is life as a whole or life in that individual aspect that we just talked about, your finances, your career, your relationship. We have both the positive and the negative. We call them emotions or feelings. And we like to live a life that is a life of positivity. And yet there are all of these other feelings that are very negative. Those are the little ripples on the side of the road. When you are in alignment, all is well. When you're not, you're hitting the bumps. Now, are those bumps bad? Are those emotions that you're feeling that are negative? Have you compartmentalized them in your brain as bad? If you have, I want you to reconsider that thought, because that thought that you are bad or what you're feeling is bad or how you're experiencing this journey is bad is the obstacle in your path. Because those bumps have saved my life countless times. Those bumps are not there to tell me I'm going to die in a fiery crash. They are there to remind me of one thing. You could be better aligned on the highway. And that is the same with our inner being. Our inner being, whatever name you give that, whether it's God or love or wisdom, one power, one presence, I care not what you call it, that inner being within you never hits those bumps. That inner being within you is the alignment, the allness and isness of God. And so as you are hitting those bumps in life, just remember that they are there for a purpose. I believe every one of our human emotions is God-given. As Dee mentioned, my specialty in practice is that of grief. There is not a lower emotion than grief. It is the very opposite of all that we hope for. And yet it is a human emotion, and I believe that it is a God-given emotion that we can come into alignment with by seeing that it's not necessarily the absence of life. It is the byproduct of love. That we can use our grief in a way that realigns us with love. I have people on my couch all the time who are searching for their lost loved one. Sometimes they wake up in fresh grief, still looking for the partner they've been married to for 40 years. Why wouldn't you be? You've practiced that for 40 years. It takes a while to notice they're not there. And what I tell them over and over is stop looking for them where they were and start looking where they are. Stop looking for where they once stood, but start feeling that they are now a part of you. You are, by all means, an extension of whatever that name you give God. And so when you are on the side of the road in life, doing that thing, you are not separate. You are still the extension of Source. It's just that Source sometimes needs to wake us up. Sometimes something within us needs to be awakened, that's a better way to put it, that reminds us, I am an extension, yes, but greater than that, I am in oneness. I am in harmony with that Source. For most, I think the reason we don't like the obstacles in our path is because we desire something else, but because that desire, that want within us hasn't materialized, hasn't manifested based on our physical eyes or ears or touch or taste, because it's not there, we believe that it isn't there. Seems logical, but the promise all master teachers have ever told you about is that when you ask, it is given. When you pray, it is done. When you knock, the door is opened. When you seek, you can find. And one of the ways in therapy that we often talk about or express to others who are on the ripples of life is we use a method called distraction. You've used that with your children and grandchildren. You've used it in your own life. It's a great method, probably one of my favorite methods. And yet, somehow, over the course of time, we have changed our mind about distraction a little bit and said, well, you shouldn't distract. You should be so focused on this till you fix it. But when you're focused on the problem, rather than on the solution, you're still focused on the problem. The polar opposite, right? But if you can distract from that for a while and go over and, do something totally different, then that is no longer the problem. It's not in your physical awareness or in your consciousness, at least for that moment. Distraction for us in a spiritual sense is meditation. It's prayer. It is affirmations. It's anything that gets us out of alignment with the problem or the obstacle and moves us so that we are better aligned with the source of our being. Did you believe when you came in and sat down that that chair was going to hold you? Did you test it out? Did you pick it up and clang it? Did you make sure it was going to hold your weight? Or did you just trust? Do you believe that the sun will come up tomorrow? You've had evidence of that all your life. The sun is up now, you just aren't quite aware of it. But we trust, we believe because of experience. We believe or trust because of our own life experience and the experience of others. And yet sometimes we are believing things that are not true. I told you a long time ago. Matter of fact, did you know today is my 3rd year anniversary with you? Happy anniversary. I told you from day one I only have 6 sermons. How many times have I been here? Way more than 6. 30 times. So this is, sermon number 5, just regurgitated in a different way. The reason I titled my talk today, Noun or Verb, is because I think that with faith, with this faculty, this ability within us, we have a choice. John just sang about that. I choose to have faith. I choose to love. I choose to hope. When we think about faith as a noun, then our faith is primarily about what we should believe. What word jumped out at you right there? Should. Smart group. What should you believe? Sometimes we should all over ourselves, don't we? We should believe that which our parents believed. We should believe the status quo. We should believe what we see. And yet, there is something about this thing called faith. When you move from that thing, which is a noun, to the expression of your faith, which is a verb, and you use it in a different way, you're not focused or stuck in the muck and the mire of the obstacle. But you move, when you use it as a verb, to the feeling place, to the knowing place. I grew up Baptist, very Baptist, which is Southern Baptist, small rural community Southern Baptist, very, very, very Baptist. We used to sing a song called I Know That I Know That I Know as a child. I did not know that I knew that I knew, because I didn't know what I knew as a child. I knew what my parents knew. I knew what the preacher was saying over and over. He only had 6 sermons too. But I didn't know what I knew until I came into alignment with the God of my understanding, with the wisdom within me. And today I can stand and proudly say, I know that I know that I know. And I will tell you, there are other days when I don't know anything, and I'm on the side of the road again. What is it that you know? What is it that you know about that obstacle in your life Do you know that it's temporary? Do you know that it's just a thought you had until you believed it? Do you know that it's manifesting because you believe it and practice it? Do you know that you can change your mind? Abraham Hicks says this about faith. Faith, in a religious sense, is believing in something not yet seen, not with your eyes. Faith is not believing in something unknown. Faith is rather knowing. Use those words interchangeably for just a moment. There's the verb, knowing, feeling, being assured. We had a gentleman in first service, Buddhist, came and talked to me after the service, and I had used the word awareness, and he said, we verb that word in Buddhism a lot, and he said we are always awarenessing or awaring. And I like that, because awareness is kind of stuck. Many of you know I took care of autistic children for a long time, and their entire world is right here in this bubble. They couldn't necessarily see beyond that, but they certainly trusted that I would help carry them beyond that I would be there when they woke up, that I would be there to get them to school or whatever the case may be. They just had that faith and that trust. Maybe you have a child, a friend, yourself, a dog, a cat, whatever the case may be, that's trusting you. Many times when we have those obstacles in our way, we like to talk about a leap of faith to get over them. And leaps of faith are kind of scary, aren't they? Because the truth is, we can take the leap, but if the chasm is too far, we won't make it. And so I always encourage people, take small leaps rather than big ones. You're going to walk out in the next hour and notice that the parking lot is full of water. You could try to jump from the door to your car and miss it all. But I'll be out there to watch that happen, by the way. You are going to fail. That's what we're going to have fun watching you do. Or you could leap here where it's dry and leap over here where it's dry. And small leaps. You're still going to get there. So one of my minister friends came to me not long ago and said something I've heard over and over. He said, I'm having a crisis of faith. And I said, no, you're not. And he knew then and there he was in the wrong place, but he sat down anyway, and he said, no, I'm having a crisis of faith, which is a big deal to a minister, as you can imagine, right? I said, well, congratulations, because it's only Tuesday. You have several days to get over that crisis of faith before you have to get back on stage Sunday. But when I said, no, you're not having a crisis of faith, you're having a crisis, we unattached the faith portion of it. That was everything. We could get to the nitty-gritty. We could see the obstacle in his way, which was just a thought he was believing. And then we could reapply that ability of faith to get over that obstacle. In my private practice, each of our coaches has a mission statement, a statement of faith, if you will. You just read one here. And mine this year is, we print them and have them framed in our offices, and mine says, live on purpose. And one of my coaches has one that says, Dear God, please help me grow my faith. And when I questioned her about that, I just mentioned that, you're beseeching this God outside of you to grow this thing that is within you. And she said to me, you know, I didn't even see the word faith there. I didn't even notice that I had done this salutation to God. All I saw, all I knew was the word grow. That was my desire. That was my want. I just want to grow. She had attached God and beseeching and faith and all of these things to her true desire of growing. By the way, today her sign has been reprinted. It just says grow. And so what is it to grow our faith? I think the more time we spend in meditation and prayer, the stronger our relationship with the God of our being develops. That's how you grow faith. Distracting from whatever that big thing is in life, going back inside to the awareness of the allness and isness. Next week I'll be back with you, and that's what we're going to talk about, what it's like to go back within, what it's like to sit in a place of knowing. Dee brought my holy text today, Oprah's magazine. And I love Oprah, another master teacher on the planet. Every issue, last page, says what I know for sure. Oprah has a lot of faith. I think we could take a great lesson in understanding what I know for sure, what I know that I know that I know. And whatever that is for you, if you can apply faith as a verb, as an expression, then you will understand what we in Unity have developed as spiritual understandings and principles, and applied it as what is our fifth principle, which is it's one thing to know all of the other ones. It's one thing to read all the books. It's one thing to go to all the workshops. It's one thing to sit in prayer and meditation and get to know God. It's one thing to get to know yourself. But it does you no good unless you verb it and live it and faith it and become it and move in that direction and grow and live on purpose. Thanks for having me. I'll see you next week.